All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to get started with this activity here. This is just a review of the worksheet. Most of you should have this done by now, but this is what we did in class. So you can see these answers, I'll type these in on the screen. I'll do this the best I can and give some explanation to these answers as well. All right, so let's get started here with this. Obviously with German submarine warfare, it pushed the United States towards war because, you can I'll italicize each one. I'm not gonna really worry about punctuation here, just kind of get the information. So the idea is that German U.S. kept sinking ships with Americans and American goods on them. And then plus, with the most Americans at this time, many of them believed that this war, or at least this conflict, and this form of warfare was unfair because obviously the German U-boat is able to destroy a ship without warning. Again, the idea is that submarines can go below water. So, and again, the ships, it's not going to really matter as to how they go down. But the idea is that the German submarines can destroy a ship without the ship even knowing it's there. And that's the really crazy part about this. Americans really think this is unfair. They think this is an advantage the Germans have that they don't like. And again, just as like any other time in American history, if Americans don't like something that is against them, you're really going to begin to see a major fallout from this from the American standpoint. They don't like when they're at a disadvantage, all right, ever. Even when the advantage is, it's war, this is war. So, but anyways, so this is the two answers here we have for this. Number two, Americans received a pro-Allied version of war events in Europe because British cut the transatlantic cable, all right? Again, is that the only information from then on out came from London. So this transatlantic cable is what connected the United States to Germany and other parts of mainland Europe. When the British cut this cable is essentially cutting off this communications between the two countries of the United States and Germany. The main reason is because if Great Britain wants the United States in this war, they need the United States to believe that the British are the good guys in this war and the Germans are the bad guys. To put it, that's a lack of having a decent way to explain this conflict. All right, so, but propaganda is so important to the German and British in attempts to gain the U.S. as an ally. Americans are easily swayed by what they read in newspapers. Americans can easily be swayed by what they read, by what they are told. So even if you tell them something that's false using propaganda, it can be something that is very, very detrimental to the enemy, the British or the Germans. So, but the British had the advantage here to feed propaganda to the United States to get them to believe a certain way. All right. Number three, President Wilson began to support the idea for war preparedness because American. Is that the idea that the Germans sank the Lusitania, which was a British ship with Americans on it. But he also got public pressure. In the United States to continue preparing for war because this is not something that we should take lightly, that the United States should not just accept the Germans sinking our ships at will whenever they feel like it. And this is the one thing that many people really wanted Wilson to be really strong about. It was keeping there. But knowing what who in Lusitania, can you really fault the Germans for sinking the ocean liner? No, really can't. Because Now, this is very unofficial, and it's not very grammatically correct, but I just want to get the information down here. The ship contained weapons, and Americans on board were thoroughly warned prior to boarding about the dangers of crossing the Atlantic. This is a big, big section of this idea, is that Americans knew the dangers, they still boarded anyways, and this ship contained weapons. So the Germans had every reason to destroy it. All right, that's a big part of it. All right, in February 1917, Wilson broke off diplomatic relations with Germany because messed up their submarine warfare. However, as you think about the United States moving forward here, this whole idea of this submarine warfare and its unrestricted submarine warfare, the Germans actually do agree to a pledge called the Sussex Pledge. All right, the pledge again was all about the Germans warning. I'll put this pledge. Destroying them. So the idea is the Germans would give probably an hour's warning, and the submarines would surface. The ships would then have an hour to, disembark, meaning they would get in the lifeboats before the ship was either searched or destroyed. And this is the whole idea behind this. But if you're the Germans here, many American merchant ships, they arm themselves to pretty much protect their livelihoods from destruction at the hands of this submarine. All right. Again, think about it. If you're an American merchant ship owner, you're a captain, this is your life's work. The ship is your life's work. You're going to protect it at all costs. So many ships did arm themselves, so when the submarine surfaced, they could then fire their weapons on that submarine. After a while, the Germans wouldn't take it anymore, and then they continued their unrestricted submarine warfare. All right. So, number 5, the Zimmerman note pushed the U.S. closer to war because the note asked sorry, I'm taking the time to type this up. All right. So the note asked Mexico to declare war on the U.S., thus distracting the U.S. from the European war, which would give time for Germany to win the war against France and Britain and then attack the United States. Now, what does Mexico get out of this? Glad you asked. Well, if you don't ask, here's the answer. Territory that once belonged to massive states that the United States has right now that belong to Mexico at one point, and this is what Germany would have promised back if what Mexico would have declared war on the U.S., distracting the U.S. from the European war, drawing their attentions towards the Southwest. All right, let's get the next one here. All right. So, the Russian Revolution pushed the U.S. closer to the war because revolution the revolution overthrew the autocrat in power. John Nicholas II. All right, once the family is overthrown, the autocrat is out of power, the people now have chosen the government, and that is something the United States can back. Would the U.S. have joined the war sooner if Russia was a democracy? It's very well possible. But this is your answer that you can give. There's no right or wrong answer to here, this one. Let's put this here. It's what you can provide there. Yeah, no right or wrong answer. So you decide at that moment if you think the United States would have joined the war sooner based on knowing that Russia as an autocrat or an autocracy or a totalitarian regime, once an autocrat is overthrown, the people in control, Russia is now an ally. If they would have been a democracy with the people in control then, who knows what would have happened if we would have joined up. All right. Finally, last question here, and I won't type the last section down here because, again, this is another opinion question. But on March 20th, 1917, Wilson's cabinet voted unanimously for war because all right, 3 more American ships were destroyed without warning. And this is the last straw for Wilson. After all the warnings, after all the political talk, all the discussions, this is really what's going on with the United States and Germany at this point. The Germans continue to sink the boats. We tell them to stop. They don't. And that's the last straw for us. So we declare war as a result. Now, the last question is what we're going to talk about with the notes here moving forward. So the next presentation, what you'll see, has to do with the notes and everything that plays a role into that idea here. So if you think about how America joins this effort, that's the next screencast that I'll post. But this is the screencast for now. That's all I have for this. If you want to get these answers down, you can pause the video at any time. You can go back, take a look at some of the stuff that you missed. I know I don't have the entire sheet on this page here, but do your best to pause the sheet at any time. And go back and get the answers that you need. All right, make sure you can use these because these would be great study tools for you here. If you don't have these answers on your assignment that's already posted, that's no big deal. I'm just checking for completion. But you can change the answers with these. That's no problem, just for your own studying purposes. Okay, have a great day. I will talk to you guys then in the screencast for the notes.